Hello family, welcome to A-Level Law. My name is Des and today we're looking at the adversarial and inquisitorial legal systems. Let's get right into it. Welcome back. So we're going to start by looking at the adversarial system, right? So just right off the bat, an adversary, just to understand what an adversary is, right? An adversary is an opponent, right? So when we're saying people are adversaries, right, it means they're opposing, they're fighting against each other. Think of a boxing match, right? When we have Pacquiao and Mayweather, or Muhammad Ali, and who was the guy who was fighting Muhammad Ali? I'm forgetting his name, but you want to get the picture, right? Or if you're looking at wrestling, John Cena versus Batista. Now I'm dating myself, but that's the picture of adversaries, people, opponents who are fighting against each other. So this is the adversarial system. So this system is used in countries with common law jurisdictions. So in countries where there is common law, right, which uses common law. So in court, advocates, right, these are the lawyers for both sides, represent their party's case or interest. So each party builds a case by producing evidence and witnesses and attempts to discredit the opposition. So the case is presented to an impartial judge. So the judge or the jury who are then judging. So it's presented to an impartial judge or jury who decide the outcome after hearing both sides of the case. So when you say this, that the jury or the judge are impartial, it means they are not in support of anyone. They're just there to hear the facts and decide who has proved their case. All right? They are passive, which means they are not actively participating. They are largely there to just listen and then decide after they have listened. Before a criminal trial, the investigation is run by the police, who have to follow certain procedures. So if it's a criminal case, the police will run the investigation, and they have to follow certain procedures to be able to gather evidence and everything. And they follow procedures. They don't just do it the way they want to do it. They have to follow certain legal procedures. So let's look at the advantages of the adversarial systems, the points for the supporters of the adversarial system. Number one, the accused has the right to remain silent. It's very important for you to remain silent because, for example, if you say something, right, that you can say something that incriminates you, that makes you guilty of some crimes. But if you're silent, you avoid the risk of saying things that will make you guilty. So you have the right to remain silent. The accused has the right to remain silent. We'll look more into this as we go further along, but you need to understand that the accused has the right to remain silent under this adversarial system. Now, the accused also has a right to obtain a lawyer in serious cases and to remain innocent until proven guilty. So the prosecution, right, who are saying you did the crime, they are the ones who have to prove. You don't have to prove that you're not guilty. They have to prove that you are guilty. And you have to then, if they have made a strong case, that's the only time then you have to say, no, this did not happen, to disprove what they said. But generally, they have the burden of proving to the courts that this person committed the crime. So you are considered innocent until they can prove that you are guilty. In civil cases, it allows both parties to consider the strength of each other's case and come to a pre-trial settlement, or indeed use other methods of dispute resolution. So in civil cases, the system allows you to consider the opponent's case. So sometimes you can go to court, someone is taking you to court, and you realize, I think they have a very strong case against me. Can we settle this outside of court? So it allows you to do that, right? To settle things outside of court, to use other methods of resolving your dispute that are not necessarily going to court. And because going to court takes time and it's also expensive, it would have saved you a lot. The disadvantages of the adversarial system, these are the points of the people who criticize it. The system is not necessarily designed to arrive at the truth in a case, right? it's not designed to arrive at the truth. It leads to a contest between two parties, just a fight between two parties with an objective to win at all costs. So sometimes the lawyers cheat just to make sure that they win. So it's not really aimed at getting to the truth. It's just people who are fighting against each other. And sometimes people who win are not necessarily people who have the truth on their side. So as a result, there may be injustice if, for example, there is a procedural issue which leads to the freedom of an accused against whom there is strong evidence of guilt. Right? So if there is a procedural issue, something in the procedure, lawyers can take advantage of that because their goal is just to fight to win the case. So they can take advantage of a procedural issue, and then an accused person can be let go. Not necessarily because they are not guilty, but because the lawyers, they maneuver the system, they take advantage of the system, and sometimes because of a procedure that maybe the prosecution did not follow, a person can be let go. Or an innocent defendant can be handicapped by an unskilled lawyer or unable to afford a lawyer to defend them. So a person who doesn't have money can end up getting a lawyer who is not skilled, and then they lose the case and they go to prison because the other opponent, the prosecution, their goal is just to fight to win. So even though there's not very much strong evidence, but because they can prove, they can fight, and they can make it look like this person is guilty, that person can be made guilty because the other party is not skilled, does not know how to fight back. Now let's look at the inquisitorial system. So remember, we said according to the adversarial system, it is a contest, it is a fight between two parties. But in the judge or the jury forms a passive role. They're like a referee, like an umpire. He doesn't participate in the game, but mainly he's just there to listen, to watch, and to judge, right? But in the inquisitorial system, the judge has a more active role in the case. So inquisitorial system, it often applies in countries with a codified system of law. An initial investigation is often led by an examining magistrate. So an officer of the court called a magistrate does the initial investigation, which is different from the other adversarial system where the police is the one who do the investigation. But here an initial investigation is often led by an examining magistrate, and then they will make a report, and that report is presented to a trial court, to the court, which then does the trial and hears the case and then decides the outcome. So the judge acts as a fact finder, and he's there to find the facts. He's asking questions. He's heavily involved. And the officers of the court, which are the lawyers, the advocates, help the judge to decide the truth rather than to take one side over the other. They're there to try to guide the judge to help him to decide the truth, and they're not necessarily in a contest of just fighting against each other. Now, the judge takes a more active role, and he will be there to even question the witness. He questions the witness and asks them things and tries to find out the truth even for himself. Now, let's look at the advantages of inquisitorial system. The points for the supporters of this system. This system emphasizes impartiality and truth-finding over winning. It also reduces the advantage of wealth of one of the parties in a dispute, right? Because these lawyers, these advocates are not necessarily fighting against each other. So, unlike in the adversarial system where a person can get a skilled lawyer because they can afford, and another person will get an unskilled lawyer because they cannot afford a skilled lawyer. And they will lose the case, not because they don't have a good case, but because they don't have a good lawyer. So there's an advantage of wealth for the person with money there. But in inquisitorial system, it reduces the advantage of wealth of one of the parties in a dispute and reduces emotion and possible bias, right? So the judge is finding the facts for himself. It's different from an adversarial system where the jury can be swayed by the emotions. If a good lawyer who speaks and makes them and touches their emotions, and they end up making decisions based on emotions, not on the facts on the ground. But here, the judge is fact-finding, is asking questions. So the risk of the judge using emotions and being biased is lower. It also makes sure in the inquisitorial system that no one receives special treatment and everyone is asked the same questions by the court. Now let's look at the disadvantages of the inquisitorial system. The points for the people who criticize, the critics. Due to the need for a thorough investigation, the case may be lengthy, and it is often impossible for unrepresented or untrained defendants to defend themselves. So because the judge will be doing the thorough investigation, and before that, the magistrates will have to do their own investigation they will give the report to the judge. Because of all of that need for a thorough investigation, the case can be long, and it is often very impossible for a person who's unrepresented or a person who's not trained in law to be able to represent themselves. And in this inquisitorial system, the accused is generally, there is no right to remain silent. There is no right to remain silent. So they can be able to say stuff that will incriminate them. They can say things that will make them guilty, because they have no right to remain silent. They have to answer every question that they are asked. Number 3, it may not be fully independent, as the minds of the judge and advocates may be predetermined before the hearing, and the outcome of the case could be decided by just one person, the judge. Right? Unlike an adversarial system where there are two parties which are fighting, and the judge will then, after hearing both parties, decide on a case. In an inquisitorial system, because there is not that, we don't have that fighting of two sides, right? The judge, when they hear the case the first time, they might already be biased before they even hear all the facts. And even as they are asking the witnesses the question, they are confirming their own bias instead of asking the right questions. So there is that part where the lawyers and the judges might start the case when they have already made up their minds. And so there are no opposing parties that are really fighting each other. So there is really not much chance of then the judges or the lawyers then changing their minds. They might enter into the case with a particular frame of thinking that they are sure that this person did it. So that can also happen, which leads to bias. And the one person who is the judge who makes the case can be very biased as well. So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope this added a lot of value for you. Do me a favor, if this is adding value for you, just hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and tell everyone to tell everyone. And if you want to be part of our online school, we have an amazing online school, please check the details in the description of this channel or the description of this video. Until next time, guys, peace.